what's the next one? We got R versus Python.
All right, what are we segueing into next?
Segue.
Yeah, so SEGUE into actually like kind of started off started off a debate or I thought it was a really interesting conversation. But our mine and Brady's roommate and coworker Spencer Schneier.
I'm Team R. Team R right here, baby. This is the only R. This is the only R I care about.
Whoa, that's messed up, dude. Not even Driveline R?
Hey, you know I'm Team Driveline D. Leave the R to you. Nice. Team.
That's my R.
Team index fingers.
Anyways, so our coworker and friend Spencer Schneier had a tweet, and first off, anybody that knows us in person, I like Spencer a lot. I'm good friends with Spencer, and he loves kind of like firing stuff up on Twitter, and I know he knows that he would be the first person to admit that. So like I know it's intentionally inflammatory. He kind of was pooping on R a little bit on some social media.
I'm bringing him up. Hey, yo, Spencer,
bring him up, dude. Bring him up. I'd love to see him. Stutter through defense. But anyways, we kind of went back a little bit back and forth on social media. But basically, it kind of boiled down to what I thought was an interesting conversation: who you would recommend like learning R versus learning Python. And I get that question a bunch, both from employees, trainees, and like like followers of the podcast or followers of Driveline on Twitter, so forth. So initially, Spencer was saying Python was superior to R based off a few reasons. I'll kind of want to recap through them, give my thoughts, and then kind of hear your guys' thoughts, because all three of us have had experience of both R and Python. And I actually think, unless I'm mistaken,
R to Python.
No, I was gonna say I think all of us have gone R to Python, like at different points in our lives and of different in different environments. But yeah, so R and Python can both do plenty of stuff. And ultimately, if you don't know R or don't know Python, just learning one of them is huge. Definitely don't spend too much time on indecision, because that's not. It's the time you spend like debating which one you should learn. That's better invested in learning one of them. Yeah. But to give a kind of a quick broad overview, like I said, both of them can do quite a bit. R was initially designed, I think, for more academia and scholarly reasons, and they have very user-friendly statistical packages and constantly updated packages. A lot of times, packages are popping up every month, sometimes every week, and they're catered towards sometimes specific departments of schools. Like the way I learned R was when I was taking my first upper division stat class at UC Berkeley, and we have like a school license. Like we went in, we downloaded the R license, and there's like, one of the best or one of my most useful stats basic packages on R is actually called like Psych. I think it's like the library Psych. It was like developed for a specific psychology department, I believe. But anyways, R has quite a bit of use for data analysis, statistical analysis, general math, general like data frame agglomeration. Python has all that stuff too. Usually boiled down a couple modules, boiled down to NumPy, Pandas, scikit-learn, that kind of stuff. And Python, in addition, has a lot more variability, so to speak. It's an object-oriented. It can be object-oriented. It can be used to construct a REST API. It can be used to construct a scalable web app. All these points. So Python, in the grand scheme of things, can do more things. R can do a few things better, is basically the contention I had, kind of going back and forth with Spencer. And I don't think R is better in Python. Like I said on Twitter, and I'll say now, I think it's better in certain things. And I think depending on what your goal is, it can be a better starting language. Again, if you're debating if you're spending way too much time debating between R and Python, just choose one and start learning. Because I do think the carryover, regardless of what language you choose first, once you learn one language, the carryover is that much greater when you start learning a second language. Even if the syntax not the same, all that kind of stuff. Syntax is not syntax may seem like a blocker early on,
Yeah.
But once you kind of get into nitty gritties of languages, you realize it doesn't really matter, because if you forget a little bit of syntax, there's tons of open source documentation of any language, and it's just like one Google search away. But essentially, to kind of give my stamp on it, I think if you want to be part of a larger software development team and have more variety in what you want to do coding wise, if you think you might want to be part of building an app, be part of building like a page, be part of building an API, be connecting across SH tunnels, like more like a wider variety of things, and still be able to do data analysis stuff, I would consider Python. If you just want the quickest way to kind of move out of spreadsheets and start implementing, all these algorithms you've heard about, predictive models, linear regression, data frame subsets, all that kind of stuff, I would probably recommend R. I think it's actually a bit more user friendly for that. And if you even you could look up Google R linear regression, you'll see like it's 3 lines of code away from running it. And sometimes it boils down to, and Python's not that much more, but Python has more data types. Python can have more complex built-in data frames, nested stuff, all this kind of, there's like multiple ways to subset, and some of them have slightly different outcomes, all that kind of stuff. Python, once you get familiar with it, like I said, you can definitely do more things. So if you want a longer term end game when it comes to coding, Python might be the choice for you. If you just want to kind of rush into more advanced data analysis right off the bat, I think R is a great choice. And like I said, I personally didn't have too many issues going from R to Python. And I'm very curious to hear your guys' thoughts, because like I said, we all have some R Python experience. We also have some Python experience, and we all went R to Python. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, my main thing was that, at the beginning level, like when you're just getting into it, it's so negligible. Like there's just not really any difference. And then by the time where maybe there is a difference and it matters, you're probably proficient enough in either, and just coding in general, they're making a switch shouldn't be that hard. As a beginner, understanding the syntax differences and I guess data types between Python and R could be overwhelming and hard as a beginner. But as soon as you're proficient enough to where it actually matters which one you're using, I feel like switching is that, or even learning the other one,
I was gonna say, after you're done, I was gonna pop in with one other key point I blanked on, but yeah, go ahead.
I just feel so much of learning to code, as weird as it sounds, was literally learning how to code in general, which for me was a lot of learning how to Google the right thing, or how to test things, bug check, stopping scripts, looking at the console. I mean, it took me forever to get to the point where it was oh, that's how I should do it, and you showing me oh, you should, good coding practices 2019, right? That, just learning how to learn to code was enough for me. But I also had a pretty informal raw entry into coding through R and stuff like that, and then just went into Python blind. But
yeah. I was gonna say one last thing. Well, so first off, full disclosure, I mentioned on Twitter as well, but right now I currently do most of my coding in Python because of the software tools we built through Edge. That's an example where Python's more scalable for building part of apps or tools that hyperlink on that live online essentially. Yeah. Whereas Shiny apps, that's another example of someone Shiny apps are a very easy way to get a user interface in R. Yeah. Building something like that in Python and immediately hosting it isn't really that easy or straightforward.
Yep.
You can do, you would do Python have a living web page or somewhere, of your tool or report or everything. But you can also still do that through R. It's a lot more complex. You have to call stuff through the command line, depending on how you have your infrastructure set up, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. The other thing I was going to say is I probably still like R's visuals and graphics quite a bit more than Python, which is unfortunate since I'm doing so much more in Python because, like I said, it does make more sense in a scalable web app. But Python is getting a lot better.
Just like general data viz.
100%. I still think R's Arsenal is superior.
And one thing, like, you haven't found a Python package that doesn't do the same, or they just like don't exist, or
no. So I was going to say Python is making packages that are basically knockoffs of R packages. Like they're copying their color and style formatting to make it easier for transitioning R users. Like ggplot has like knockoff packages in Python. There's ggplot functions that originated from this visual and graphic being like much more superior in R, and people are copying that kind of stuff and putting in Python. Python's growing probably at a much larger rate than R. And like one of the points that Spencer brought up that I 100% agree with is I think the advantages that R has over Python, I don't know if they're going to have them for too much longer because Python's a larger community. There's more people working on open source packaging. I think there's actually a Python package for baseball analysis that just came out that rivals some of the existing ones for R, because there are stuff like R, baseball data R, that kind of stuff. And I'll drop the link in the GitHub. It's open, I think, on one of my many tabs. But yeah, do you have any thoughts, Lindley?
Yeah, I was gonna say the big thing for R for me is that so like R Studio is where I think most people will probably do their R programming in. Yeah. Which is the text editor. R is the language. R Studio is like where you edit the code and run the code. And R Studio has some really, really, really user-friendly things. Like it shows all the environmental variables. It shows like everything available to you in your scope. You can easily graphs. Yeah, you have the graphs. You have a console. Everything has their own little pane, and you can see everything. And you can run it line by line, really easy. You can just click on a line and run that one. If you want to. So I think that's one of the big things, especially coming from MATLAB, where MATLAB has an even more user-friendly interface where you can manipulate, you can view data. If you just have a data table, you can just double click on it and it'll come up as a table. It's like an Excel table.
I always forget, like MATLAB was actually my very first coding language.
Yeah. So, and also the thing about that, really a coding language. The thing about that is that MATLAB syntax is almost identical to R. So that was a really easy transition to me because I learned the same. I learned MATLAB as well. And then I also think my only other thought is that Python, outside of like the things that you guys have said, Python, there are ways to code in Python very, very, very similarly as R. Like if you set it up and you like have the same approach, the only difference is like a couple things, like referencing these functions from a certain library, like that is a tiny bit different, but you can code basically the exact same way. So I don't think like
just changing the Google search, like one word in the Google search. You Google search the same thing instead of in R, you say in Python.
Yeah. Exactly.
And a lot of times,
different Stack Overflow.
Yeah, a lot of times what I've actually used, and it's a very common search term because I always see Stack Overflow questions that are similarly worded. It'll be like, oh, what's the Python equivalent of this R function? You know, like you see that stuff all the time. And it's because people like it in one language and they know there's a matching thing in that language because they do so many similar things. The R Studio thing's a great point too, Lindley. And that's like something that you can set up in Python, but it takes that much more experience, right? Like you would set up a VS Code, you would like look up your own browser's capabilities for that VS Code, install the Python add-on, then put a debugger, have that list all the variables on the side panel, all that kind of stuff. Whereas on R Studio, you download the latest R Studio, and then you make sure it's installed properly. You open it, and there you go. You have your script, you have your output, you have your existing environment variables, you have a help section with like any plots or packages you've downloaded.
The help thing is another good thing about R Studio that I forgot is you can easily just literally say help this, and then it'll like come up with a PDF that gives you instructions.
Yeah, and then interface in R Studio is actually.
R Studio does crash a bit, though, at least when you're and that's on another hand. I don't want to spend this whole podcast debating R versus Python, although that's actually honestly this might be one of the more helpful or interesting segments we do, because I think a lot of people do have this question, like on the Python's faster. Python's much faster for large databases.
There's definitely an FAQ that I get quite a bit. It's like, I want to get started.
You do as well?
Just like want to get more into coding. But I get it from kind of like two types of people. I think one being zero coding background, like coaching baseball, that just like wants to get started in something.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'll also get it from like people that I went to school with, like more like university background, who like their background is more in like things like SPSS, MATLAB, Excel, that kind of a thing, and wondering if like R is a good switch from there. So like I feel like the university background, institutional people, like R is probably the play just because of the statistical power. It's not like, in a university lab you're like making like scalable apps or something,
Yeah.
It's also just a standard, like there's as far as statistical software goes, it's like Minitab, Jump, like all these things, and then R is like in that mix, whereas you wouldn't see like Python in there or whatever.
So the one like SAS or something.
Yeah,
SAS.
I use that and for my econometrics class in college. I remember, and that's the only time I ever used it.
SPSS and SAS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the last thing that I wanted just to like tack on my thing about being able to code similarly in R or in Python if you set it up the same way. I'm not a super proficient coder. Like I'm able to do the things I want to do, but I still don't think I'm not efficient as far as like using objects the right way or like doing things the most time efficient way as far as processing time. But so I still think that I'm kind of doing it with the approach that I'm in, like I would be if I was in R or MATLAB. So I think that is plenty good for like 80% of applications, unless you're in like product, like software product development, like you were talking about before. So
yeah, and that might be the viewpoint Spencer's taken on it as well. He's done more software development stuff rather than like the actual data analysis things that are might be more user friendly for, and he probably already has more experience with like software and stuff where the user friendliness of our isn't as much of an appeal to him. But yeah, definitely think, like I kind of said at the very beginning, they can do a lot of the similar things. They have slightly different scopes, and I think both have their uses, and really depends on how much what your coding scope kind of is. And again, if you're just stuck and spending way too much time trying to decide which one, just start one. And I mean, if it doesn't,
try to solve it.
Yeah.
Google how to solve it with it.
Just apply if you're just doing data analysis, and if you have some experience in Excel, just start building out what you would do in Excel. Start building out R or Python, like and then kind of have that at the beginning of your script.
Yeah. Table of data. I want to do a t-test on these, columns. How do I do that and whatever?
Yeah.
But I mean, none of them are going to rival, the Visual 3D pipeline text editor. That is the ultimate coding language. Nothing better than that.
One Spencer kind of had a funny line. I thought it was funny. Somebody said, his original tweet was R is terrible. And then somebody responded, even for data analysis. And he said, for everything, period. It's so bad we should consider making the alphabet 25 letters. Just removing R completely.
That's good. Good.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm Team D. Team D still.
That's fucked.
Yeah, I should have known Lindley's Team R also, based on the allocation of R&D responsibilities.